Alright, today we're going to be putting together the Polaris Ranger motor. I'm going to walk through every detail of this motor. So this video may be lengthy. I won't do a lot of editing to this video. I will just show you exactly how it goes. So you can skip through this video if you need to. We're replacing the crank. This is a 700 motor. We're putting an 800. I'll show you the difference. But crankcases, camshaft, oil pump, all that is going to be the same. I'm going to go ahead and replace our lower bushings here to start. You want to make sure that all these surfaces are cleaned up and ready to go. Make sure they go back in there the exact same way that you took them apart. So those you kind of tap down in there. They'll fit down there about perfectly. And you don't want to use anything metal, but that you'll want them to be flush. And once you pinch your cases together, they'll actually kind of center themselves, but you want to get them awful close. We've got our other side here. There's going to be two of these larger ones, and there's not going to be a gasket putting these two together, so it's going to be a liquid gasket. So you want to make sure that make sure you've got a liquid gasket sealer handy. And then we've got four other of these bushings here, these two-piece bushings. So grab a pick or a small screwdriver. Remember how these go in, because they'll go back the same way. So we've got a lip over on this side, so you want to make sure going back together, you put the lip over on that side. We've got our camshaft in there, and that just slides in and out. That one's flush. We'll grab our last two here. All right, we can just throw these in the trash. Make sure, going back together, that this clip right here will sit right down that groove, and then you'll have an oil seal sitting on this groove over on this side. So we'll drop this down in there, but first we're going to dab some oil. So I just have a cap of oil that I'm just going to be using quite often, just to kind of lube things up as we're going together. We don't want anything running dry even for the shortest amount of time. Make sure your rods are going through there. There we go. You can turn it over, make sure it feels smooth. Don't forget our seal here. This is a hot rod seal. The kit that I purchased to rebuild this motor didn't include this seal, so make sure that if you're building your motor, let me know if you need the parts. I can get you the part. I can get you the complete set. We will put our crank balancer in. Now the difference between the 7 and the 800s is this right here. These rods are going to be hitting our table there, but this on the 700s, 700 balancer here won't slide into the 800 cranks. So you've got to actually take a grinder and shave down both sides, but more emphasis on this side here. It'd be your clutch, whoops, excuse me, I've got that turned backwards. It would be the opposite, no, it still would be your clutch side. So the stator side, you don't have to do as much grinding, a little bit, kind of get the edge off there, but the bulk of the grinding has to be done on this side. And I didn't take measurements before. I didn't think it was going to be that much, but it ended up being, I would say, probably 1/8 of an inch, but that's just kind of a guess. And then slide that in there. Then that will spin freely around. Obviously, if the crank isn't in the right position, it's not going to. And at this point, we will take and put this other case half on. It's going to take a little bit of time for me to goop this up here, so bear with me. If you've got oil on these cases, this sealant won't stick good. So make sure that oil is cleaned up at this point. If you dripped any when you were lubing up those areas that I was talking about, make sure those are all cleaned up. It doesn't really matter which side you goop up at this point. Okay, now we're going to start putting goop on here. You don't want to do so much that you will fill up bolt holes, then your bolt's going to have a hard time going in there. So just be a little careful when you're going around those areas. this goop here does a really good job of filling in the cracks. So all right, so we've got goop around there. Okay, I'm going to dab a little bit of oil, make sure that none of this is going to come off. We don't want this sealer in oil orifices. And these are where the two places that I dabbed here, the crank bearing here, holder here, and then the counterbalancer. So got those lubed up. Now we're going to set this case on here. Two different sizes on these. Okay, I should have been counting to let you know how many there was, but just make sure all the holes are filled. I like to snug up a couple of them before I start really torquing them down. Alright, now we can go around. You want to make sure all of them get done. So whatever your best way of doing that is. One thing I will want to tell you, make sure you know the limit of your impact so you're not tightening these down so far that they're breaking off. These are threaded, two different thread pitches, so make sure those are done right. You've got the finer thread actually goes up in this case. Alright, we can clean up now any excess liquid gasket. Now we are ready for some gears. I'll clean